Hi, Rachel.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Yes, the sun is
Good.
shining, so all is nice.
The sun is shining. It's not shining over here, which is slightly annoying. But anyway, such is life. It's Friday. It's the 15th of November, and we are well into the autumnal season with all these lovely trees and colors changing. What do they call it in the US?
The fall,
The fall. Yeah,
the fall.
absolutely. To all our lovely American cousins out there. It's full. But look, Rachel, let's get into it. Um, I'm putting together a Notebook LM piece, which for those of you who don't know is a wonderful piece of AI developed by Google. And one of the things I'm going to be talking and developing with Notebook is some of the frustrations, desires, and fears that are experienced by tech C-suite, CEOs, CMOs, and CROs. I'm going to be sharing that with people, but I thought we could talk about that or touch on that today and maybe just talk about the top three and see, what we've actually experienced. Because I know that when we've compiled a list over the years when we've been talking to people about those particular areas, fears, frustrations, and desires. And if we look at frustration to kick off with and just look at the top three, we had number one, difficulty achieving consistent lead quality. How many times do we hear that, Rachel?
All the time, all the time. And I
All the
think
time,
it's one
all the
of
time.
those things which sends you into a panic as well, doesn't it? So, things are going fairly well and then they suddenly start to not go so well. And then everyone's like, oh, what's happened? What's going on?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think as well, 2024 has been, and we'll come on to that, 2024 has been it's been quite prevalent, that particular frustration, if you like, which kind of feeds into the second one as well, which is long and complex sales cycles. And, which again, we will touch on, and then just to round off the third one. So these are the top three. The third one being poor alignment between sales and marketing. We hear that a lot, and that hovers between sort of 2, 3, all the time. But so they're all kind of quite interlinked, and that's going to kind of be the discussion we're going to be touching on today. These three particular frustrations. So just to repeat, and these will all be in the show notes. So difficulty in achieving consistent lead quality, long and complex sales cycles, which a lot of our customers experience, and poor alignment between sales and marketing. What would you say is, out of those three, Rachel, sorry to put you on the spot, but what would you say is the one that's kind of, you would say, I hear that all the time, or do you hear all three? By the way, I've got a bit of a sore throat, so I might be taking a glug of water and some medicinal stuff as we speak. Fire away.
And coffee, very
I'll try
medicinal.
not to cough. Very quickly, before you answer that question, just on a slight tangent, I had the pleasure of being on the podcast with one of the world's leading transformational coaches, a wonderful chap by the name of Will Steele. Certainly sounds like a secret agent. Secret agent Will Steele, and he's as I say, he's a great guy, and he really made me open up about my background and all of that kind of stuff, but also things that I'd learned in terms of resilience and various other things, which again feeds into this. When we meet the C-suite, they may never have run a business, they may never have experience running payrolls and doing all the other ins and outs of a cut and thrust business. But really, I think that's one of the other things that we bring to the party, is that level of understanding and empathy that actually a lot of sales, marketing, and leaders all suffer, because they all have the same anxiety and fears. So that's one of the ways we try and soothe their frustrations and things. But going back to the point, coming back from that sort of slight tangent, the 3 points that I mentioned there, Rachel, which one do you feel is really something that that really stands out for you?
Yeah, I think it's not necessarily the more regular one. I would say that it's the one that has the biggest impact. And I think the first one that you mentioned there, which was the difficulty in achieving consistent lead quality, is by far over the course of the year the one that keeps raising its head in conversations, because it only becomes pertinent when things are bad, right? So when everything is kind of ticking over, it's no one's really looking at the quality in any depth. No one's analyzing things to the detail that perhaps they would. And as soon as something goes quiet, as soon as things drop off, that's when actually the alarm bells start ringing quite quickly. And it's, well, what do we need to change? What do we need to shift? And it could be something, quite straightforward that has led to that sometimes is even out of our control or out of the client's control. But it has a big impact, because lead quality means that all the efforts that are going into the marketing and the sales teams, all the costs that those incur, are then not delivering the output that is leading towards the end goal, which is to, increase revenue at the end of the day.
No, absolutely. And I think I was saying earlier on that, but that first particular point, it's something that's been very, very prominent in 2024. It was happening within the tail end of 23 and now 2024. And really, when you drill into some of those things, and as we do, you can really see that I think there's been 2 or 3 things that have impacted on the quality of leads. Number one, what we found is that there has been this kind of geopolitical madness that's been going on, has had one kind of impact in the rise of interest rates earlier on in the year. A lot of people were like, oh my goodness, what's going on? The Fed's raising interest rates. Is it going to lower interest rates, as is the Bank of England and other economies? Secondly, I think, and more importantly, there has been a massive shift in the way people buy software. There's been a complete change. No longer can you still be using, this is just 12 months ago. This is how rapidly things have changed. How you were selling 12 months ago to prospective customers and how prospective customers were engaging with you has radically changed. And if you're not adaptive, you're not aware of what those changes are, well, you better wake up and you better, I'm not necessarily say speak to someone like us, though you're very welcome to, but you really need to understand that the seismic shift and pivot that's happened in the marketplace, that's being driven by customers who demand more, who want more, who are taking longer in terms of their buying committees, and also by this two-letter word, if I can get it out and put my teeth back in, called AI, artificial intelligence. It's everywhere. It means different things to different people, but it's absolutely creating change for so many clients who are looking to sell this software. I think that's at least 2 things that have impacted that particular first point about consistency of leads. What do you think?
I think the platforms as well, they're changing. So the likes of Google, LinkedIn, Facebook, the way that you're advertising to your customers is changing hugely. The conversations with like clients and the Google teams are all directed in a route of AI and, trying to engage users based on their whole behaviors and where they are in the digital environment, rather than just one day waking up, going to a search engine and typing in what you want. That's kind of the days of old, isn't it?
Long gone.
Long gone.
Absolutely.
Or downloading some kind of document, or a checklist to help you do X, Y, and Z. I'll give you my email for that. People are much more cautious to share their information because they're doing their research behind the scenes. So I think that a big pressure on trying to get those leads through is that clients or customers are not necessarily willing to show their hand until much later down the line when they're closer to making a decision,
if at all. There is I've heard, I was lucky enough to be privy at a closed loop CMO gathering, let's put it that way. And I occasionally get invited to these kind of things. It is a closed shop. It's for CMOs and not for people like myself. But I occasionally get invited, and I'm lucky enough to hear some of the stories and the pain points and the frustrations that people have. But also it's an eye opener for me as well, because I feel that even though I'm a silent observer, I feel like grabbing certain people by the lapels and giving them a good shake, because sometimes they're like, well, our strategy for the next quarter is purely video, hypothetically. And that's great, but you cannot have a linear kind of approach, because guess what? What's your call to action on that video? What is the engagement piece? How do you react if you post a video on, and there was a great piece on LinkedIn about this, that there is a huge amount of complaints happening with people looking to engage with people on LinkedIn. They're writing a comment and asking a question after someone's posted a video, and it's taking 2 weeks for someone to respond, because what companies are doing are literally spending all this investment on video, posting it, forgetting about it, just saying, oh, well, I've done that bit now, tick box, done. We've now created or got a company to create 15 videos for us, job done. Has it moved the dial? Has it created any more things? Oh, no, it's an investment in brand. Hang on a second, take a step back. This has to be a joined up approach. You can't just be doing one particular piece of content and expect it to pay dividends, especially when there's so much video fatigue out there. I think people are getting very, very highly frustrated with a lot of nonsense that's out there. And I suppose that we're all about solutions. So how do people deal with that? How do people get consistent quality leads? And let's share some of those things. I'm happy to go first, or if you want to dive in, Rach.
Well, I think the other point, just off the back of what you were saying about the video, churning out content and kind of leaving it in the ether to do whatever you hope it's going to do. I think that could be the same with the leads as well. They come in either from marketing or from sales outreach. The sales teams jump on the back of them as quickly as they can to try and sell the product or the service, don't get anywhere. And then what happens? They go into just a generic email churn and burn, like not what used to be called nurture, but what isn't actually in this day and age a nurture program, because how many emails do you get on a daily basis that just get deleted out of your inbox? What is it that actually really stands out? And I think going back to the point about how the buyer has changed, like the second point on the frustrations list is how complex that buyer journey now is reflective of that. There was a day where you could just pick up the phone and call that list of leads and get through, and it was kind of a numbers game. And I think now you have to be much more intelligent as to how that flow is working. And many companies that I'm speaking with, they have the leads coming in, they're working on the quality of those leads once they come through the door, potentially. But then they get to a point where if the sales teams are not closing those deals, then they kind of get put into some automation that no one really looks at ever again. Oh, we're running our automation in the background. People are going to get those emails, and some of them might come back to us. And then they're dismissed as they're not quality leads anyway. And I think it kind of, each of the 3 points that you made at the very start about what these frustrations are all interlinked, because you're talking about the quality of the leads, you're talking about the process of buying, and you're also talking about the sales and the marketing teams potentially being misaligned. And there's not a surprise there that the marketing teams, if they're driving what they believe as qualified leads, and the sales teams are picking them up and calling what they believe is a qualified lead, and that still isn't leading to a sale, there's frustration. And that is kind of the underlining thing of everything that we're talking about today is, why is that happening? What is it that can be improved with that process? And how actually is it changed that these businesses aren't changing what their approach is to solving those problems. They're still just doing what they were doing a year ago or 2 years ago and not getting the desired outcomes. I don't know if you would agree on any of those points with conversations you're having.
I would. I think so. Spot on, but also I think before I don't want to lose the thread of what you were saying earlier about some of the old-fashioned techniques that just changed. I'm not saying that they're wrong, but as I say, gated content that you touched on earlier, come on, guys. It's got to be so compelling before you get, no one's going to download a white paper anymore when they can watch a video on it. No one's going to download a playbook when they don't really know who you are, let alone what you do and why they should even download it. So just a catchy title ain't going to move anything. So you're wasting a lot of energy, money, and time by doing that. And I think they're just important points to sort of share. But yeah, I think a lot of the things that you're saying there are absolutely true. You have to be far more transparent. You have to be far more open in terms of what you're doing. But putting something into an automated system that's just going to email someone, then you sort of close your eyes and hope for the best with your head and your knees, ain't gonna work. And when we get people coming to us saying, "Hey, I've been doing all this amazing stuff, automation. I just thought I could press the button and just watch the leads come in, or the phones light up like Christmas trees." Well, it's not going to happen, my friend. It's not going to happen because you haven't sorted out the fundamentals right now. You haven't built on the foundational stuff, which I keep going on about. If you can't communicate who you are, what you do, why you do it, and why a customer should buy you, let alone all the pricing and the value that you deliver, who your ideal customer, you're just going to go round and round in circles. You're going to throw a lot of mud at the wall, hope some of it sticks. So get that bit right first. And automation is wonderful when you've got that bit right first. But automation itself, what we are seeing is this amazing ability to scale and use these amazing new tools that are out there, these AI tools, and the stack that we're sort of building out as well is that combination. You almost have to use those three facets, if you like, because if you don't, you're missing some really, really, important elements. So, the drop off in lead quality is real. I think it's very, very real. It is interlinked with large and long, complex sales cycles. The amount of stories I hear of people thinking, they've done a demo, they may have done a second demo of their software, and the customer's kind of saying to them, "You're top of my list. We're just going to do some discussions internally." The sales and marketing team are doing high fives in the office. They're already dreaming of that vacation. And guess what? Well, we've just had Halloween. They get ghosted. So they get ghosted and they never hear from that customer ever again. And they're all sat there scratching heads. And then sales blames marketing, saying that lead was never good in the first place. Marketing's blaming sales, saying, you could have closed that better. You didn't answer the client's questions. We're marketing. Do you want us to sell this stuff for you as well? And there's a real issue because it touches on the third point about the alignment of those two divisions. In this day and age, to have those two siloed departments really is kind of nuts, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that we've done a lot of kind of content, I guess, ourselves on off the back of, is how sales and marketing work together and potential ways that you can improve that process. And I think one of the main things is that the goals are often quite different. And if you've got sales working towards commission-based goals and marketing working towards KPIs without commissions, and the KPIs are not even aligned with the sales ones, then that it seems bonkers that those two teams are working for the same end goal of the company. And I think that it's something that some businesses absolutely are nailing it, and you can see that a mile off because it's very effective. And I think a lot of businesses are still way behind in regards to how to do that, because it is a cultural shift. It's a company shift. It's not just a marketing or a sales shift. It's actually how the business views that element of kind of running things and getting to successes.
100%, Rachel, 100%. Very well said. So I think to kind of round things off, why don't we just touch, we've talked a lot about the three big challenges. We've also talked about some of the things that you can do with it, but let's just give a few takeaways on those 3 points, one by one. So the first kind of frustration that we talked about was the difficulty in achieving consistent lead quality. A solution to that is, well, there's quite a number of solutions to that. One of them could be an account-based marketing, an ABM sort of strategy, which again, we can talk about on another one of these sessions. But I think for a quick win, it's all about understanding where your customers are and defining clearly what you do. A lot of this is going to come back to this, but also understanding that look at what the techniques you're using are. If you are still using, as I say, some of those things that we touched on, which are gated content, rather old-fashioned content as well, i.e. old-fashioned videos that talk about yourself as opposed to the value that you add. Let's think about that. So again, we're talking about value here. Let's define what that value proposition is, guys. And yeah, so you can improve lead quality by being far more discerning in who you're actually targeting, but also be far more vocal and visual in terms of what it is, how you actually solve that problem for your customers. So that's how I would do.
I think there's two big things for lead quality. Two big things for me for lead quality is one, does it matter? What impact is it having getting some irrelevant leads coming through? Because if you're looking at scaling up your business big time, if you're looking at real growth, then there has to be a level of expectation that you're going to get some weeds coming through as well. And therefore, what impact is the quality having? If your quality's gone down, but the you're still getting the positive output of good quality within there, then you need to assess what that is. And I think the other point would be that actually checking that quality is poor, because often inquiries come in, and as I said, the marketing to sales process sometimes dismisses potential opportunities because they don't tick all the right boxes. And there potentially are opportunities that are within there that are qualified, but they're just not then being followed through and nurtured because they're not yet ready to buy. They're not in that 5% that are there and ready to purchase. They're in the 95%, as you always say with the 95-5 rule, that they're not ready yet. So they're not going to buy right now, but then they're kind of thrown in the bin because they're poor quality. And I think those two things would be key things. So just really assess within your business as to where you're at with those.
Fantastic. So I'm just going to add one more point, a little throwaway on that, is always remember the 95-5 rule. Because if you're, again, just for those who may not know what it is, even though we've been bleating on about it for the last 2 years, is that, again, this was something done by the B2B Institute along with Link, that 95% of your buyers are not in market, only 5% are. So there is no point sending sales messages to that 95% of people who A, don't even know they have a problem, let alone the solution that you have, solve that problem. B, when they do have that problem, that you want to be in the frame, so that you're educating them along that sort of sideways funnel. And by the time they get to that sort of 15, 10, 5%, area where they're really interested in buying and have a burning need for that solution, that you are there and shortlisted to be the de facto solution of choice because you've been engaging and nurturing those people from that initial lead all those months ago. It may even have been a year ago. So guess what? If you've been taking the time to do that, you're going to win that deal. And it's as simple as that. So
And I think that
some really, really good points.
I think that ties into the second point really well as well, as a kind of response of what can be done about that, because it is about the complex buyer journey and how things are changing.
100%. And I don't think there's a huge amount to say on that, because a lot of software that is sold is complex. You can try and systemize it, but it can be a longer journey, especially the higher ticket numbers as well. McKinsey talk about the omni-channel. They've talked about the omni-channel helping people to buy through a variety of different, depending on which door they go in. And that's always something to look at. And that, again, is all about looking at your analytics and looking at your data and how clean your data is to actually see which door they actually came in and how you can help them move further down the line. We're also hearing a lot more about online sales rooms where, you lead and encourage customers to go into an environment, a portal that has all the information that they require. So you're helping them make a decision without selling to them because they have all the information there, but you're there as a guide to help them through that process. So online sales room as well is a big thing in terms of reducing that complex cycle. Maybe not reducing it, but making it far more engaging, but also having the right messaging along the way of that journey, which, if you don't know, is something that you need to start establishing, which again is the 95-5. So that's number two.
Just a final point on that is also the number of buyers or decision makers or influencers involved in the buying journey now as well. And the fact that it's no longer perhaps targeting that one persona that's responsible for purchasing your software. It's being on the radar with all of those decision makers and all of those influencers, so that when the decision sits down in their boardroom, you're the brand that they're talking about.
Absolutely. It's no longer just say, we've just got to sell this to the FD or the financial controller because that's the person that signs it off, or the CEO, she's the person who's going to sign it off, or the CRO. Well, guess what? There's about 14 different people. The users of your product, the people who influence who should get that product, the CIO, who may be looking at the interoperability or the security of your product and how it fits in with the rest of your internal stack, etc., etc. So it goes on. So there are ways of doing that in a far more intuitive way that we've written about and talked about, and we'll be happy to share with you if you're interested to learn more. And then the final point, the alignment of sales and marketing. My goodness, where do we even begin with this? It's like an onion. Every time, you keep peeling those layers back within departments, so they just go back to it. So I'm just going to deal with it very, very quickly, and then you can jump in. But I just think it's a cultural shift, as we've talked about. I think it has to come from the top. The C-suite, the board, the leadership, the management have to realize that sales and marketing and sales are one. There is a yin and yang, to use my buzzword of the week, which you're probably sick of. But they have to be in harmony. If they're not in harmony, they're in disruption. So it's one of the two. You're either in harmony or you're not. And if you're not, how do you bring those two together? And there's numerous ways that we can do that, which we won't go into depth right now. But there's lots of ways of doing that. I know there's lots of other people on LinkedIn who've talked about it, some great people who've continually talked about it. Some from a sales perspective, some great CROs and some sales leaders, and also some great people from a marketing perspective about how they align the two. So there we go. 3 thorny subjects, which we've hopefully addressed. Anything else you'd like to add, Rachel, before we round things off? It's been great talking to you about this.
Not from me.
Okay, wonderful. So it's good that we should I should have a pair of glasses and we should do the two Ronnies, and it's good night from him. It's been great having you all on here listening to this. If there's anything else you'd like to know or any other topics, come back when we do a part 2 about some of the other things in our series of fears, frustrations and desires by tech leaders, and look forward to seeing you on this podcast again soon. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.